Overnight, the Israel-Gaza ceasefire shattered. Gaza residents describing the deadly Israeli strike as a night of hell. Plus,
we are on the 10th yard line of peace, and we've never been closer to a peace deal than we are in this moment.
Closer to peace between Ukraine and Russia than we've ever seen before. President Trump speaking with Putin in just 1 hour. We'll bring you live updates as they enter our newsroom.
I said, just don't redact. You can't redact. But we're going to be releasing the JFK files.
President Trump vowing to release the JFK files today. The shocking revelations we could soon learn. And school in the South now appealing to more college students. The reason so many of these Southern universities are seeing attendance spike. Good morning from our NewsNation newsroom in Chicago. I'm Nick Smith. We begin with deadly developments in the Middle East. This morning, Israel launching its biggest wave of airstrikes on Gaza since the January ceasefire. Gaza health officials say at least 413 people are dead. Israeli officials say it's in response to stalled hostage negotiations. Hamas calls it an unprovoked attack that puts those hostages in danger. The strike comes during Ramadan and could bring a full return to war. Israel says the operation is open-ended with plans to expand beyond airstrikes. NewsNation's Robert Sherman has the latest. Robert, the obvious question behind all of this is, what does this mean for that ceasefire deal and the remaining hostages in Gaza?
Yeah, that's the big question everyone is waking up with here this morning, Nick, with the Israelis carrying out this series of strikes and emphasizing that they have no intention of relenting the pressure until hostages are released. And the IDF now announcing new evacuation orders for people around the extremities of the Gaza Strip, giving the indication that these operations from the Israelis will continue. What you are seeing on your screen here are the caliber of strikes that we have not seen in any capacity since that ceasefire first went into effect. But the Israelis saying that with all these talks stalling here, that these are the operations that they are pressing forward with, and emphasizing that until hostages are released, this is the kind of pressure that Hamas can expect to see. Take a listen.
We will show no mercy on our enemies. Let me be very clear. Israel will not stop until all of our hostages are back home. We will make it very clear to the Security Council that if they want to stop the war in Gaza, they have to ensure that the hostages are coming back to Israel. We are committed to bring them back.
Both Qatar and Egypt have come out this morning condemning the Israeli strikes, saying that they want peace in the region and want a return to the ceasefire. But you have heard the United States coming out in support of the Israelis. National Security spokesperson Marni Hughes put out this that says, quote, Hamas could have released hostages to extend the ceasefire, but instead chose refusal and war. Nick?
Robert, question for you, though. One hostage with U.S. citizenship is still alive in Gaza. What is the White House saying about efforts to bring that individual back home?
Yeah, that would be Idan Alexander, who has U.S. citizenship and is currently being held by Hamas inside of Gaza. This has been quite explicitly stated as being a top priority of the White House to bring Alexander home. And there was a point last week in which Hamas put out a public statement in which they said that they would be releasing Alexander. But in the wake of that statement, both the Israelis as well as the White House threw a lot of cold water on that, dismissing the Hamas claim and believing that Hamas was being disingenuous, saying that Hamas is saying one thing in the public sphere, but negotiating behind closed doors for something completely differently here. And now you have the Israelis pressing forward with their operations there. It still remains the stance of the White House that they want to do everything they can in order to bring Alexander home, but they have been very critical of Hamas and their negotiations and their motives behind the scenes here. Nick?
Robert Sherman live for us this morning at the White House. Robert, thank you. Live pictures of the White House now, a critical call between President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin set to take place within the next hour. Over the weekend, the president appearing optimistic.
We learned a lot. We're doing pretty well, I think, with Russia. A lot of work's been done over the weekend. We're want to see if we can bring that war to an end. Maybe we can, maybe we can't, but I think we have a very good chance.
Not part of this call, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He wants the U.S. to put the pressure on Russia, demanding maximum sanctions if Putin refuses a ceasefire. And he blamed Putin for ignoring the U.S.-led efforts to make a deal.
Кожен день в умовах війни.
Every day in wartime means human lives. By now, it has been nearly a week since it became absolutely clear to everyone in the world, even to those who, for the past 3 years, refused to acknowledge the truth, that it is Putin who continues and prolongs this war. For a week now, Putin has been unable to muster a simple yes in response to the ceasefire proposal.
I want to welcome in Andrei Dobryansky, Director of Communications and Media for the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America. Andrei, I've watched you for the last few years. It seems like every time we talk to you, it's centered on a difficult situation that Volodymyr Zelensky has to make each and every time representing the Ukrainian people. I want to start with asking you this. It seems as though President Trump has noted that land and power plants are part of the talks with Russia. He mentioned efforts to focus on, quote, dividing up certain assets. But Andrei, it seems like the assets we're talking about dividing up are all assets that belong to Ukraine.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? There's been a lot of discussions about carrots and sticks and how Ukraine gets the stick, but Russia gets the carrot. And that seems to be the negotiating status right now. It is also interesting. I might add that the United States law states that it is the express United States policy to help Ukraine return all territories that were invaded by Russian, and as well as that they will never recognize Russian occupation of these territories. So it's not just a discussion that's happening on the back of Air Force One. There needs to be U.S. law changed to even broker this kind of discussion.
So, Andrei, how is this a win situation when we're talking about giving up assets that belongs to Ukraine and then seeing if Vladimir Putin will actually go along with the deal that the U.S. seems to be brokering?
Well, we don't know what's going to be discussed today. We do know that you just covered a ceasefire that was brokered by the White House that doesn't seem to be a ceasefire. And we also know that peace isn't just the absence of war. You heard President Zelensky just now concentrating on the truth, recognizing that there are people who will not recognize the truth that Russia invaded Ukraine. There are many truths that needs to be voiced in the process of peacemaking. So you don't just stop the war. You need to have peacemaking after the fact. Who will be assisting in that? That's not very clear. And who will be voicing the truth of the hundreds and, dare we say, thousands of people who are victims of sexual abuse? Who will be returning the nearly 20,000 children? Will Russia be doing that as a sign of goodwill at the very beginning? These are the problems you have with a terrorist state. We're seeing it in Gaza. We're not seeing the same kind of hard line from the United States against Russia.
And Andrei, before I go any further, let's just break it down for our audience, because we're talking about it's not a ceasefire. Exactly where do things stand right now? What is the situation in Ukraine?
It's pretty hot, but in reality, it's been a hot war for 10 years. There was this period between 2015 and 2022 when, from the perspective of the West, things weren't really happening. But I can tell you from speaking to soldiers at the front, the borderline would move kilometers a day, either advancing one way or another, depending on the hot fire from one side to the next. What's happening on a regular basis is what Ukraine would want in terms of a ceasefire to begin negotiations, which is cessation of these ballistic missiles and drone attacks against Ukrainian civilian areas. Ukraine has obviously developed its own very powerful drone attacks against Russia, but those have been targeted against military facilities. What we want to stop are the children's hospitals, the maternity wards, the nuclear power plants, all things that have been hit by Russia with their ballistic missiles.
Andrei, I have less than a minute, but can you tell me what success would look like today with this phone call?
I think success would look like if the United States were to stand by its ally and say, listen, this is what we demand. And if Putin doesn't give in to those demands, like Ukraine did, Ukraine said originally that they wanted to do a sea and air ceasefire, but the Trump administration insisted it has to be a total ceasefire. That's what Ukraine agreed to. It seems as if Russia doesn't do the same thing and agree totally to the demands of the Trump administration, there should be some kind of punishment, much like Ukraine was deprived of military intelligence and military supplies. Sanctions should be ratcheted up ASAP.
Andre Dobriansky, once again, thank you so much for joining us this morning on a very difficult situation that we're all watching to see how it develops. Andre, thank you.
Thank you.
More than 60 years after President John F. Kennedy's assassination, we could get new insight into one of the most studied moments in American history. Today, the federal government is set to release 80,000 pages of unredacted documents, files that until now have been kept from the public. President Trump has ordered their release following through on a campaign promise. NewsNation's Xavier Walton is live in Dallas, standing just steps from where history changed forever. Xavier, good morning.
Nick, good morning. And here's the thing. For decades now, for years and years, a lot of questions have gone simply unanswered. And today, later this afternoon, a lot of those questions could be answered. But I should also note, some people believe this really could be, much ado about nothing. And this could be, whatever is released, underwhelming. But you said this in the intro, and it bears repeating. We are talking about a massive trove, some 80,000 pages of unredacted files from the JFK assassination set to be released today. And this comes, like you mentioned, after President Trump promised to do so on the campaign trail, saying he would declassify the documents. Well, shortly after President Trump was inaugurated, he signed an executive order directing the release of federal documents related to the assassinations of former President John F. Kennedy, former Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. Here's Phil Sheenan, author of A Cruel and Shocking Act, The Secret History of the Kennedy Assassination, earlier.
I don't think anything in these documents will substantially change the history of the assassination. I don't think they'll point to a second gunman in Dallas, for example. But there have always been these reports that Oswald told people what he was going to do before the assassination, and those people might have helped him or encouraged him. And in that case, you might be talking about a conspiracy that really has never been revealed.
So we'll wait and see. During President Trump's first term in office, he made the same promise to release the JFK files, ultimately keeping the documents under wraps, some of them at least, citing intelligence concerns. The last large dump of documents was in 2022 when the National Archives released nearly 13,000 new files related to the assassination. Now, as far as today's concerned and what time specifically, all we know is that later this afternoon at some point, and soon we'll find out, what exactly is going to be revealed, Nick. But again, think about that massive trove, 80,000 pages. What's going to be in them? We're going to have to wait and see.
Not only 80,000 pages, Xavier, but 80,000 pages of what could be unredacted material. That could be a lot, and it could change history. Xavier Walton, thank you so much. Tune in this weekend for NewsNation's special report, Declassified, the JFK assassination. We'll dig into what the recent files released are revealing, as well as the controversy behind what the government knew about the former president's assassination and when. That's this Saturday at 8, 7 Central, only here on NewsNation. And still ahead, the legal and political firestorm ignited by the Trump administration's mass deportations under the Alien Enemies Act, and the critical deadline looming in just a few hours.
Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore begin their belated trip home.
Separation confirmed.
On behalf of Crew 9, I'd like to say it was a privilege to call station home.
And literally, a moment all of us have been waiting for. In just a matter of hours, those two stranded astronauts will be back on Earth. After 9 months, they finally left the International Space Station overnight. You know we're watching this one very, very closely. And sorry, Hobbit, why many students are ditching the elite Northeast to attend college in the South. Straight ahead on NewsNation Live.
With Dupixent, stay ahead of moderate to severe eczema as you welcome the feeling of touch with clearer skin and less itch. The #1 prescribed biologic by dermatologists and allergists helps heal your skin from within. Severe allergic reactions can occur. Get help right away for face, mouth, tongue, or throat swelling, wheezing, or trouble breathing. Tell your doctor of new or worsening eye problems like eye pain, vision changes, or blurred vision, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop asthma or other medicines without talking to your doctor. Ask your doctor about Dupixent.
I'm always trying to learn about money and finances. The Experian app can help you build your credit, find new credit cards, car insurance, save time and money, and overall just help you gain more knowledge. So download the Experian app right now.
Hi,
Hi, glad everyone's here. Let's get started.
When they want to squeeze up,
Let me share my screen. Okay, sorry about that. I'm excited to share the...
they want a squeeze up.
Deliciously delectable delectables.
Squeeze up.
If your cat's litter makes you do this, you need this. Pretty Litter is an odor-busting, low-dust, health monitoring solution to your cat's litter box. Scan the code on screen for your exclusive TV offer or visit prettylitter.com today.
I love what I do, which is help people make the switch to consumer cellular, like our customers Courtney and Jackie.
Anytime anybody complains about their cell phone bill, we say, you've got to check out Consumer Cellular.
Consumer Cellular gives you access to a fast, reliable, nationwide network for up to half the cost of big wireless.
My previous provider was terrible.
Why are we paying this much for our cell phone bill? It's crazy, right?
Dropped calls or missed calls. To me, that was just normal.
We wouldn't get to talk to a person. Now with Consumer Cellular, no problems.
Our reception is so much better with Consumer Cellular. It's been amazing.
I just made a road trip across half the country, and I did not have one dropped call.
Better customer service. They tell me exactly what I'm paying and why I'm paying for it.
And here's my favorite part. You can save up to half on your bill.
It's within $1 of being half of my old bill.
With Verizon, I was paying about $150 a month. With Consumer Cellular, I'm paying about half that.
As AARP members, we get 2 lines for $55 a month.
I'm getting the exact same coverage for half the price. That's a beautiful thing.
Done deal.
We'll set you up with the best plan for you and help you wrap things up with your old provider. It all takes about 20 minutes.
Switching over took about 20 minutes. That's it.
Consumer Cellular customer service reps are A1, top notch.
They are so nice. You get a human being to talk to.
It's month to month, very simple. You're not locked in.
I got to keep my phone. I got to keep my number.
If you're thinking about switching providers, do it.
If I can do it, you can.
That's why I love Consumer Cellular. They've made it easy.
We'd love for you to enjoy our reliable nationwide coverage and the best customer service in the business. Give us a call now and start saving up to half on what you're paying now. It only takes about 20 minutes. Call 800-667-6105 to switch and save up to half with Consumer Cellular. Plus, new customers can save $25 when they switch today.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Marky Martin. We're hitting the ground early. Grab your coffee, everybody. We have more news for all Americans right now.
Morning in America. Tomorrow, 6/5 Central on NewsNation. Brought to you by Olay, a proud sponsor of Remarkable Women.
We are talking about terrorists in our countries, men who are preying on young women, who have raped, killed, and assaulted young women and girls in this country. President Trump had a commitment to get rid of these crazy people out of this country and send them back home, and that's exactly what he did. To have a federal judge in any state in the United States to try to prohibit the President of the United States from doing that is just abhorrent.
Abhorrent to prohibit the President of the United States from deporting those they say are rapists. The Trump administration doubling down on deportation flights to El Salvador, facing scrutiny in court this morning. A federal judge who tried to block these removals is now questioning whether the White House deliberately ignored his orders. The Trump administration arguing the flights targeted individuals with criminal ties, but critics claim that some of those deported were wrongfully removed. NewsNation's Tom Dempsey has more from Washington. Tom, those were strong words from a spokesperson from the administration.
Absolutely. Good morning, Nick. Look, noon Eastern time today. That's the deadline facing the federal government to hand over information about these flights that deported over 200 alleged gang members from Venezuela. But one thing, as we just saw in that soundbite that played, is the Trump administration is really pushing back against the judge overseeing this case. In fact, Nick, just a very short while ago, President Donald Trump posted to Truth Social about this case, calling on the judge to be impeached. The president wrote, quote, "The judge, like many of the crooked judges I am forced to appear before, should be impeached. We don't want vicious, violent, and demented criminals, many of them deranged murderers, in our country. Make America great again." So, again, we're seeing much more pushback against this judge, but this case brought a contentious court hearing on Monday. A federal judge pushed back against the Justice Department for not turning around the planes carrying the alleged gang members, despite ordering them to do so during a virtual hearing on Saturday. The Justice Department refused to share much information, Nick, citing national security reasons, and said no planes took off after the written order was filed. The judge, though, said his verbal order should have been enough to ground the planes. The Trump team has described the alleged members of the Tren de Aragua gang as an invading force conducting irregular warfare. But the ACLU has raised some questions about how some of those deported may not actually be gang members, and the group accused President Trump of overstepping his authority and violating that court order.
At this point, it seems like the administration is simply walking into court and telling a federal court they can't look at the evidence, they can't stop what they're doing, and we see constant public statements from administration officials criticizing federal judges, saying they don't have authority. I think we're on dangerous ground here in the United States.
Now, on the other side of this, Nick, when asked directly by NewsNation, the White House team said President Trump used his legal executive powers all in an effort to keep Americans safe.
What do you say to Americans who want safe streets but are concerned due process is being violated?
The president is using every lever of his executive authority and his constitutional authority within the bounds of the immigration laws of our country to ensure that our streets are safer for law-abiding American citizens. Countless lives will be saved because of this action.
And Nick, Attorney General Pam Bondi has also pushed back against this case, accusing the judge of meddling in national security members. But Nick, in the meantime, those alleged members of the Venezuelan gang remain behind bars right now in El Salvador. Nick?
Tom Dempsey with the very latest from our nation's capital. Tom, thank you so much. I want to bring in Charles Marino, former Homeland Security Senior Advisor and author of Terrorists on the Border and in Our Country. You know, one of the first things that jumps out at me when we see this, the president has said words like demented and deranged. Is the fight against these deportations really about due process, or do people really believe that those who are demented and deranged have a right to be here in the country?
Well, Nick, I mean, quite candidly, I think the issue is should public safety threats and national security threats that entered the country illegally and were allowed to do so under the previous administration remain in the country and remain a threat to the American people? Look, we're talking about the Alien Enemies Act here, which is a law. Disregarding how old it is, that doesn't matter. It's still on the books. And I've got to tell you, President Trump is not the first president to target these public safety and national security threats. We saw Barack Obama, when he was president, do the same thing to the tune of 450,000 deportations a year for 8 years straight. So I don't understand what the outrage is here. This has been done before. The American public agree with it. We saw that as a result of the last presidential election and where this issue ranked with the American people. So for the courts to insert themselves here and say that this doesn't apply, I believe is disingenuous.
And Charles, I'm so glad to hear you say just because the rule is old doesn't mean it isn't still applicable, because this is what it's all about. Mr. Trump campaigned on the promise of getting people who are bad for the country out of the country. It appears to be that's what he's doing.
Absolutely. And look, he's rightfully declared it a national emergency. We know how this has impacted our homeland security, and it will continue to do so unless we get these dangerous cartel and gang members out of the country. They've already been designated as foreign terrorist organizations, a move that I support and actually called for 3.5 years ago. In my book, it's time we step up the operations, step up the aggressiveness against these cartels and these gangs. They now operate very similar to Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They don't care how many Americans they kill. We see this each and every year via fentanyl. They will work with our foreign adversaries to do that. And the administration, again, is taking the right approach here. I think ultimately the courts side with the Trump administration on this.
Charles, I'm glad you said that. I have about a minute left, and I do want to know what you think about this. Do you think the Justice Department will defy the judge's order to hand over information about these flights and the individuals they say are definitely a threat to American citizens?
You know, Nick, if that's what it comes down to, where the intelligence needs to be shared to show a connection between these gangs and the cartels and these folks that are being deported, I think that will be easily made here. But, you know, I think the administration has a compelling story They're on the right side of this. It's good for the country. It's good for the American people. And enough is enough. At some point in time, we need to enforce the laws of this country to remain a civilized society. No civilized society has survived without law and order. This is a fact of history. I know sometimes history can be stubborn, a stubborn fact, but this is not the time to play these games with the safety and security of the American people.
Chuck Marino, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Nick.
You're looking live at Dealey Plaza in Dallas, from the very same window where an assassin fired the bullets that killed President John F. Kennedy in 1963. The key information we could learn from the JFK files when they're released today.
Steve Bannon, CUOMO, live tonight only on NewsNation.
With fatigue and lightheadedness, I knew something was wrong. Then I saw my doctor and found out I have AFib. And that means there's about a 5 times greater risk of stroke. Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if you have AFib, the risk of stroke is always there. If you have one or more symptoms, get checked out. Making that appointment can help you get ahead of stroke risk. This is no time to wait.
Is your dog telling you they may have allergic itch? Apoquel is the #1 treatment for allergic itch that veterinarians have trusted for over 15 million dogs. And it starts working in just 4 hours.
Do not use in dogs with serious infections. May cause worsening of existing parasitic skin infestations or pre-existing cancers and serious infections. New neoplasias have been observed. Do not use in dogs less than 12 months old.
Ask your vet for Apoquel, now available in a tasty chewable.
My mental health was better, but uncontrollable movements called TD, tardive dyskinesia, started disrupting my day.
TD felt embarrassing. I felt like disconnecting. I asked my doctor about treating my TD and learned about Ingrezza.
Ingrezza is clinically proven to treat TD, quickly reducing TD by greater than 5 times at 2 weeks. #1 prescribed Ingrezza has dosing that's always 1 pill once daily, and you can keep taking most mental health meds. Ingrezza can cause depression, suicidal thoughts, or actions in patients with Huntington's disease. Call your doctor if you become depressed, have sudden behavior or mood changes, or suicidal thoughts. Don't take Ingrezza if allergic. Serious side effects may include allergic reactions like sudden, potentially fatal swelling and hives, sleepiness, the most common side effect, and heart rhythm problems. Know how Ingrezza affects you before operating a car or dangerous machinery. Report fever, stiff muscles, or problems thinking, as these might be life-threatening. Shaking, stiffness, drooling, and trouble with moving or balance may occur.
Take control by asking your doctor about Ingrezza.
I love my work caring for people. I often assist women who struggle with urinary incontinence, women who have fallen trying to reach the bathroom, or who have damaged skin from too much wetness. It can take a toll on them. At home, I worried for my mother. A lack of sleep due to bladder leakage affected her life. That's why I'm so glad the PureWick system is available for home use. It's an innovative option for women who experience moderate to severe bladder leakage. This external system uses a soft, flexible wick placed outside the body to draw urine away from the body and into a collection canister. It's non-invasive and designed to keep the skin dry and stay in place. We trust it to help her throughout the night, so we're all better rested and can enjoy the things we love together.
Order yours online at purewickathome.com or call 800-508-6010 today. New external catheters for women and men available for home use. Call 800-508-6010 today.
Welcome back, 29 minutes after the hour. Today, we get to see tens of thousands of never-seen-before documents related to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. The National Archives is releasing 80,000 pages of unredacted records, making it one of the largest JFK document dumps in history. These files could reveal new details about Lee Harvey Oswald, the government's investigation, and why some information has been kept secret for so long. This comes after President Trump signed an executive order fulfilling a campaign promise to declassify the remaining JFK files. Previous releases in 2017 and 2022 left key details redacted. I'm joined now by NewsNation national security contributor Tracy Walder, who's a former CIA officer and FBI special agent. Tracy, there are so many questions I have for you, but I want to start with a personal one that I have. Tracy, when we see things like this finally being released, we're talking about unredacted files, I'm left to wonder if sometimes the information we could learn is something we really don't need to know. Tracy, is that ever a situation, or is it always best to expose and reveal everything?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Nick. That's actually a really great question. And the answer is yes and no. Typically, things should remain classified if they reveal what we call in the CIA sources and methods, right? If they put our human assets at risk for death or injury. In my opinion, I don't think that's the case here. Remember, President Clinton actually signed this declassification order back in 1992, and it was supposed to have been done by 2017. So in my opinion, I don't believe that we are still protecting sources and methods and the lives of our human assets.
And that's important to know. You've worked inside both the CIA and the FBI. So, Tracy, in a situation like this, what kind of information do you expect to see in these newly released files?
So I think there's really two things that I expect, and there's two things that I think are really why they have been redacted for so long and not shared. I think the first is, what did the CIA truly know about Lee Harvey Oswald? Really, it's been discussed that, the CIA didn't even know who he was. He wasn't on their radar. I believe, and there is information and other things that have been leaked, that the CIA did know who he was following him, and chose to not let the FBI know what was going on. I think we're going to learn the extent of that relationship. I think the second piece of that is the Mexico trip. That is the stuff, if you will, that has been the most heavily redacted that we have seen in documents that have come out. I believe we are going to learn how much he was under surveillance, who he was under surveillance by, who he met with at both the Cuban and the Soviet embassies, and what the nature of his trip was there.
And Tracy, you say CIA not letting the FBI know that they were on to him, and this is before the agencies had a habit of sharing information, correct?
Yes, really, that came forcefully after September 11th, because honestly, that happened in the lead up to 9/11 as well. They were not good, both of them, quite frankly. I worked at both. They were not good at sharing information back and forth. And remember, FBI follows individuals here in the United States, CIA overseas. And if you aren't talking to each other, that is a huge problem.
Tracy, I know that you said that the agencies tend to keep certain records classified for a certain period of time to more or less protect witnesses and their safeties and possibly even methods used. But in your time at the CIA, did you ever come across a situation where you felt like information was being kept confidential unnecessarily?
Yes and no. Typically at CIA, it's basically how long things are kept classified for, are the level of security clearance that you have or that operation has. So typically things I worked were classified 20 years plus, 25 years plus. That was pretty typical. Sometimes, in my opinion, it was very arbitrary, and it didn't need to be 25 years because the information was really not that big of a deal that we were sharing. But I understand the arbitrary nature of needing to do that, because they would rather overclassify than underclassify.
Tracy, in the last 15 seconds that I have with you there, what are you expecting to learn today, Tracy?
Really, the nature of CIA's involvement and the nature of his trip to Mexico.
Tracy Walder, thanks again for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me, Nick.
Tune in this weekend for a NewsNation special report, Declassified, the JFK assassination. NewsNation will dig into what the recent files released are revealing, as well as the controversy behind what the government knew about the former president's assassination and when. That's this Saturday at 8, 7 Central, only right here on NewsNation. And still ahead, the countdown is on. The pair of U.S. astronauts who had been at the International Space Station for 9 months are finally coming home, and we can't wait.
Comcast Business doesn't just power businesses. We help turn them into logistics mastering, supply chain transforming, seamlessly restocking, frictionless paying, poke bowl ordering, cyber securing, mobile access granting, data managing. Welcome to the worlding modern businesses. Powering the engine of modern business, Comcast Business.
We got the house! Did it! Don't worry about the driving with Pods. Pack at your pace, store your things until you're ready. Then we deliver to your new home, across town or across the country.
Pods, your personal moving and storage team.
What if you could tackle your dog's itching, mushy poops, and low energy? Millions of pet parents are raving about Dr. Marty Nature's Blend.
Such a huge difference in her health. More energy, more playful, no more pooping issues.
I'm Dr. Marty. I've been a veterinarian for more than 50 years. The dangerous ingredients added to many pet foods could be impacting your dog's lifespan. That's why I formulated Nature's Blend.
Now you can feed your dog wholesome cuts of real meat, vegetables, and fruit with no artificial preservatives or fillers. Try Dr. Marty risk-free. Go to drmartypets.com/TV.
We planned well for retirement, but I wish we had more cash.
You think those two have any idea
that they can sell their life insurance policy for cash, so they're basically sitting on a gold mine? I don't think they have a clue.
That's crazy.
Well, not everyone knows Coventry has helped thousands of people sell their policies for cash, even term policies.
I can't believe they're just sitting up there.
Sitting on all this cash.
If you own a life insurance policy of $100,000 or more, you can sell all or part of it to Coventry, even a term policy, for cash or a combination of cash and coverage with no future premiums.
Someone needs to tell them that they're sitting on a gold mine and you have no idea. Hey guys, you're sitting on a gold mine. Come on,
do you hear that?
I don't hear anything anymore.
Find out if you're sitting on a gold mine. Call Coventry Direct today at 800-509-8500 or visit coventrydirect.com.
It's lunchtime and Gary is double booked. Good thing Gary's company uses Otter's AI meeting assistant to take notes and generate a summary. So Gary doesn't miss a meeting and can regain his lunch break. Try now for free. Visit otter.ai or download the app.
If you have wet AMD, you never want to lose sight of the things you love. Some things should stand the test of time. Long-lasting EYLEA HD could significantly improve your vision. More people on EYLEA HD had no fluid in the retina compared to those on EYLEA at 4 months. EYLEA HD is the only wet AMD therapy that helped 8 out of 10 people go up to 4 months between injections after 3 initial monthly treatments. If you have an eye infection, eye pain or redness, or allergies to EYLEA HD, don't use. Eye injections like EYLEA HD may cause eye infection, separation of the retina, or rare but severe swelling of blood vessels in the eye. An increase in eye pressure has been seen. There is an uncommon risk of heart attack or stroke associated with blood clots. The most common side effects were blurred vision, cataract, corneal injury, and eye floaters. And there's still so much to see. If you are on EYLEA or a similar type of treatment, ask your retina specialist about EYLEA HD today for the potential for fewer injections.
When our numbers guy Frank goes on vacation, the deals on the most affordable German-engineered car brand in America get even better.
He's coming back!
Hop in during Volkswagen Deal Days. The deals are in while Frank is out. Get up to a $2,500 customer bonus on select new 2025 models during Volkswagen Deal Day.
News Nation tonight, a big night of heavy hitters. Steve Bannon, Stephen A. Smith, and Bill O'Reilly. Who else could get all three live on the same show? Only Chris Cuomo, of course. Live tonight at 8/7 Central, only on News Nation.
Undocking confirmed. Freedom is free of its moorings. Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore begin their belated trip home.
Free of its moorings. We love that. Next stop, Earth. A long overdue return for astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, who are finally heading home. The pair are becoming household names after launching into space on the first test flight on Boeing's Starliner back in June. Their journey was only supposed to last a little more than a week. The reality? They spent 9 months at the International Space Station, remaining there after the experimental Boeing capsule they took into orbit malfunctioned. Neither one, however, complained about what has now amounted to a very, very extended business trip. Their highly anticipated homecoming happening now at a new crew has made it to orbit with hugs and smiles. The astronauts Sunday greeting their replacements aboard the station. NewsNation's Brooke Schaefer joins us live from Florida with the latest. Brooke, this is exciting all the way around.
Absolutely. A lot of people eagerly awaiting their arrival back here on Earth. When those 4 astronauts, including Butch and Sunny, splash down off the coast of Florida, they'll first meet with a medical team. Then they'll get on a NASA jet headed for the Johnson Space Center in Houston, where their families are very eagerly awaiting their arrival. Overnight, their Dragon spacecraft undocked from the International Space Station. It's the first step on their 17-hour journey back to Earth. Butch Wilmore, Sunny Williams, and 2 other astronauts, they're scheduled to splash down just before 6 p.m. Eastern. And this duo, they've been in space since their Boeing Starliner was deemed too unsafe to come home on. Their week-long mission turned into roughly 9 months. On Sunday, their replacements made it to the International Space Station. Sunny Williams recently reflecting on her extended stay up in space.
Just wanted to say thank you to everybody around the world, all the control centers, friends and family who are out there, all our trainers, all of the folks who have got us ready to come here and fly in space. We are absolutely thankful for that opportunity, and hopefully we did you proud.
NASA highlighting the work this crew's been able to do while up there at the International Space Station, even preparing for future missions to the moon and to Mars. Now, both of these astronauts, of course, excited to be reunited with their families. Butch, for his part, he says he's ready to get back to his church and smell fresh-cut grass. Sunny says she's looking forward to long walks with her dogs and an ocean swim. NASA says they don't expect any special precautions for either of these astronauts, even after 9 months in space, though we know there will be lots of monitors and doctors, a whole medical team watching closely as they readjust to life back on Earth. Nick?
Brooke, I have to ask you this part, though. We know they're splashing down, but do we know where off the coast of Florida they actually will hit water?
Not just yet, Nick. NASA and SpaceX teams are still watching the weather at these different splashdown sites because, of course, this needs to be a precise science. But as that Dragon spacecraft starts falling toward its splashdown zone, we know what we're going to see. We'll see a series of parachutes start to open up. Those will slow down the spacecraft even more, letting it touch down in the water, and a recovery vessel with those medical teams will be waiting in the water for that crew, and so many of us watching along live as well. Nick?
And I will definitely be one of them. Cannot wait to see them make contact with Earth. Brooke Schaefer, thank you so much. Happening today, Prince Harry's visa records are set to be released to the public, raising questions about his entry into the United States. The Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank, now challenging the circumstances regarding his visa approval, especially after his references to drug use in his recent memoir. Our Mills Hayes joins us with the story. Mills, this is a big one because so many people want to know, wait a minute, was special preferential treatment given? And what could it mean if it turns out that he actually did violate the terms of his visa?
Right. Well, doing drugs isn't a thing that would disqualify him. It's the lying part that would be the concern here. So he could be thrown out of the United States for good, but that does seem unlikely. The Department of Homeland Security is expected to release a redacted version of Prince Harry's visa application at some point today. And this may reveal whether the royal disclosed his previous drug use on his visa application. Conservative think tank The Heritage Foundation has been trying for years to have Harry's visa application released through a Freedom of Information request. On Monday, a federal judge ruled DHS should release the application after reviewing proposed redactions from the government over the weekend. Using drugs in the past does not disqualify you from getting a visa, as I was saying, but lying about it could have him removed. Remember that the royal moved to the U.S. in 2020 with his wife and American actress Meghan Markle after stepping away from royal duties in the U.K. And in his 2023 autobiography, The Spare, the Duke of Sussex admitted to trying cocaine, marijuana, and psychedelics. He wrote, "Cocaine didn't do anything for me, but marijuana is different. That actually did help me." He's also openly spoken about his use of psychedelics to deal with the grief of tragically losing his mother, Princess Diana, at such a young age. This comes after a 2024 ruling by the same federal judge who said that there was not enough public interest in releasing the documents. The Heritage Foundation contested that, and now DHS has until the end of the day to comply. Nick?
Mills, quick question. Does this mean that Prince Harry will have to leave the United States?
Well, lying about the past drug use, that could have him banned, but we have heard from President Trump himself. He's already said that he would leave him alone. He did kind of go on to say that he's got enough going on dealing with his wife. Meghan Markle has previously been critical of President Trump in the past, but Trump says he's going to leave the prince alone, so we'll have to wait and see what exactly happens there.
Mills Hayes, thank you so much for that. We definitely will have to watch because I think it would be quite the sight, Mills, if we see Harry and Meghan kicked out of the U.S. Yeah.
Meghan's safe, but
Meghan is
Harry,
okay.
Maybe not.
Absolutely. Mills Hayes, thank you so much. Well, still ahead, college students heading south, why many are now opting to attend college in the southern states.
Dropped her kids off at school and she was never seen again.
This is the biggest break that the case has seen.
The truth will set you free.
Crime Nation. New episode Thursday at 9, 8 Central on the CW.
Weight loss.
For so long,
I felt stuck. I tried and tried again. Lost weight. Gained it back.
but Zepbound means change. Zepbound's for adults with obesity to help lose weight and keep it off.
Activating 2 naturally occurring hormone receptors in my body, Zepbound works differently. It's changing what I believe is possible when it comes to weight loss. It's changing how much weight I lose, up to 48 pounds. And some lost over 58 pounds.
Don't take if allergic to it, or if you or someone in your family had medullary thyroid cancer or multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2. Tell your doctor if you get a lump or swelling in your neck. Stop Zepbound and call your doctor if you have severe stomach pain or a serious allergic reaction. Severe side effects may include inflamed pancreas or gallbladder problems. Tell your doctor if you experience vision changes, depression, or suicidal thoughts before scheduled procedures with anesthesia, if you're nursing, pregnant, plan to be, or taking birth control pills. Taking Zepbound with a sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar. Side effects include nausea, diarrhea, and vomiting, which can cause dehydration and worsen kidney problems.
Zepbound means change. Discover the weight loss you could be bound for. Ask your doctor about Zepbound.
If your cat's litter makes you do this, you need this. Pretty Litter is an odor busting, low dust, health monitoring solution to your cat's litter box. Scan the code on screen for your exclusive TV offer or visit prettylitter.com today.
Sometimes my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis gets in my way. But thanks to Skyrizi, I'm free to bare my skin. With Skyrizi, I saw dramatically clearer skin, and many people were 100% plaque-free. Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
Nothing and me go hand in hand. Nothing on my skin, that's my new plan. Nothing is everything.
Now's the time. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. Learn how AbbVie could help you save.
I made millions stealing homes before I went to prison. And if your home's title is unprotected, it's only a matter of time before a criminal like the old me targets you. Your home's title is wide open online, just waiting to be stolen. All it takes is a forged signature, a notary stamp you can buy online, and a few minutes at the recorder's office. Suddenly, your title is gone. They'll sell your home, take out loans, and drain your equity, leaving you with the mess. That's why I tell everyone about Home Title Lock.
Their exclusive $1 million triple lock protection gives you 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts for any changes, and if fraud happens, their U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix it and restore your title at no additional cost. Find out if you're already a victim. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. You'll receive a free title history report and access to your personal title expert, a $250 value just for signing up. That's HomeTitleLock.com.
How about a free ride at Harvard? The tough part, getting accepted. But if you do, the bill might be nice. Starting this fall, Harvard is expanding its financial aid programs. The university will be completely free to all students from families with incomes under $100K a year. That includes tuition, housing, food, and travel. A few less perks for families earning less than $200,000, but the big one, tuition, will still be free. Harvard made the announcement Monday. A growing trend in college attendance is resulting in a southern migration of sorts, as more and more students in northern states are deciding to head south. Take a look at these numbers from a study of college enrollment over a 10-year period ending in 2023. Schools in the Southeastern Conference seeing a spike in students from the Northeast. Louisiana State University up nearly 500%, a rise of nearly 400% at the University of Tennessee. Also big jumps at Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and others. What's behind all this? Well, somebody to help me break it all down is a woman who knows. Nellie Brennan Hall, who is a senior private counselor at Top Tier Admissions. She knows that students have been migrating south, and she can tell us why. Nellie, good morning.
Good morning.
You know, when I look at these numbers, I'm thinking the obvious reason is all of these schools that I named have a great football program, solid basketball program, but it's not necessarily about the sports or the warm weather.
Right. So this started pre-COVID. We saw students in the Northeast in particular heading down to places like Elon and University of Miami. But COVID really accelerated this. So students would be watching, ESPN Game Day and seeing students actually out there at football games and enjoying themselves, while in the Boston area where I'm from, it was a little bit more locked down. So that really got students looking to the South. And I would say now we're seeing a different trend where we have students who are a little bit tired of the polarization on campus, the activism going on, especially among moderate and conservative students. And they want that kind of traditional college experience. These schools have name recognition because of their fabulous athletic programs, and they're beginning to head down there.
Nellie, I'm so glad you said that. During the pandemic, I too was living in the South, in fact, Arkansas. And I would see relatives of mine who live in the Boston area, like you do, who were masked up and they were standing feet apart. And we were going to games at LSU. It was night and day how differently different areas approached it, how life went on in some parts of the state. Do you think that that continues to have an effect on the psyche of students today?
I think that's what started moving students down there. And then ultimately, once you are able to pull a bunch of students from a particular area of the country, the name recognition starts to catch on more. You'll say, oh, my neighbor's kid went to LSU or University of Tennessee and they loved it. And you start to gain traction just by word of mouth and having students from your school attend. And that's really where it starts to take off. And there's other factors too. The cost of attendance is lower. The cost of living, if you're living off campus, for example, tends to be lower. There's the ease of applying. They are almost all on the Common application now, and they don't have supplemental essays. So there are a few factors that are really bringing those numbers up.
Nellie, what about the situation after college? Because another thing that will attract students is their believing in the marketability of their degree once they are graduates. Are grads staying in the area, or are they moving back to the areas that they came from?
I think you see a little bit of both, but in general, these are great southern cities that students are happy to stay in. Again, the cost of living is going to be lower. Cities like Austin are, very young populations, Atlanta, Miami, and I don't think there's any real rush for them to feel like they need to go back home unless there's a family draw.
And I've also seen that in the Research Triangle. That area has changed a lot, the areas, surrounding both Duke and UNC. So I understand exactly what you're talking about. But with skyrocketing tuitions, many top public universities in the South offer a relative bargain for out-of-state students also, right? Instead of that hefty out-of-state tuition fee?
Right. Even their out-of-state fees, like full tuition, room and board, travel expenses, books, tends to be lower than the schools in the Northeast, even the flagship universities.
And we talked about earlier, you touched on the political calm in the South. I attended school on the West Coast where it seems like every other day there was some type of activism. There are students who want to avoid all of that and actually attend class.
Right. I think they're looking for a different kind of experience. They want to maybe put that out of their minds for a little while. They want that rah-rah football game, fraternity sorority experience. And maybe they will be activists later on, but for this moment in their life, they're looking for a more enjoyable, kind of peaceful, in their words, I would say, experience.
Sure. Nellie Brennan Hall, where can students and parents learn more if they want to learn more about what you do and the information?
Sure. Well, you can go to our website, toptieradmissions.com. We have a lot of information. My colleague, Maria Lascaris, just wrote a big blog post on this in December, so you can check that out as well.
Nellie Brennan Hall, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
A live look at the White House as we approach the top of the hour, where President Trump is set to speak with Russia's Vladimir Putin as he eyes an end to the war in Ukraine. The conversation the whole world will be paying close attention to at the top of the hour.